May well-regulated militia be necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. I am glad that you're with us today. Coming up here in a couple of minutes, we're going to talk with Darren Leung, who is the owner of the Westside Range in New York City. We talked with Darren a couple of months ago, actually right when the coronavirus closures were first beginning. And Darren was trying to keep the lights on and the doors open there at the Westside Range. The good news is they are still in business, but we're going to talk with Darren, get an update on how things are going there for the Westside Range, but also talk about the increase in gun permit applicants in New York City. I can't say this is translated to an increase in gun owners yet because of the licensing procedures in New York City. It could take as long as a year for some of these applicants to be told yes or no in terms of the government permission to exercise their Second Amendment rights. But before we talk with Darren, we got to talk about Vice Presidential candidate Kamala Harris, right? I mean, she is now officially Joe Biden's running mate. And as we reported at Bearing Arms yesterday, Kamala Harris does not think that you have the right to own a gun, though she herself has said that she is a gun owner. Back when the Heller decision, or the Heller case, was making its way through the U.S. Supreme Court, Kamala Harris signed on to an amicus brief, a friend of the court brief, that was written by then Attorney General of Washington, D.C., Adrian Fenty, arguing that Washington, D.C. should be able to keep its handgun ban in place, and arguing that there was no and is no individual right to keep and bear arms. If the Supreme Court, according to this amicus brief, if the Supreme Court had decided that D.C.'s handgun ban was unconstitutional, this brief said that it would create a, quote, broad private right to possess any firearm that is a lineal descendant of a founding era weapon and that is in common use today. Well, except for the part about creating a right, I think that amicus brief was pretty accurate in terms of what the Supreme Court decision would do. But the Supreme Court decision in Heller did not create a right to keep and bear arms. It recognized an individual right to keep and bear arms. But Kamala Harris has never refuted the position that she took back during the days of the Heller case. In fact, she's been vociferously anti-gun ever since. As district attorney in San Francisco, she called for an end to legal gun shows at the Cow Palace in the Daly City, right outside of the San Francisco city limits. As California's attorney general, she, of course, defended the state's gun control laws in court. But according to Chuck Michel, president of the California Rifle and Pistol Association, Kamala Harris also failed as the head of the California Department of Justice to maintain databases that the state uses to determine whether or not somebody's eligible to own a firearm. According to Chuck Michel, there were not one but two separate reports from the California state auditor that found serious problems with the way that Cal DOJ processed mental health records to determine a person's firearm eligibility. Despite those admonitions, Chuck Michel says, Harris failed to fix the problems. A 2013 report from the California state auditor found that under Kamala Harris, the DOJ, quote, had not sufficiently reached out to the courts or mental health facilities to remind them to promptly report required information, which, if done, would have allowed the Department of Justice to determine when dangerously mentally ill persons were in possession of firearms or attempted to purchase them. Additionally, Chuck Michel says that report found that key decisions, such as whether a person is prohibited, are left to staff whose work does not receive a supervisory review. Because of these issues, California Department of Justice, which at the time was headed by Kamala Harris, cannot identify all armed prohibited persons in California as effectively as it should, and the information that it uses to ensure public safety by confiscating firearms is, quote, incomplete. And then Kamala Harris was elected senator. Yeah. Where she has backed bans on so-called assault weapons, universal background checks, and more. And during her short-lived presidential campaign, she touted her anti-gun agenda once again, proclaiming that if she were elected president, she would enact gun control with or without the support of Congress. If Congress didn't pass gun control within the first 100 days, she said that she would sign executive orders passing as much gun control through executive fiat as she could. The actual quote, 5 million assault weapons are on the streets of America today, she said. During the course of this debate, 8 people will die from gun violence. We need action. she demanded. And Congress has had years to act and fail because they do not have the courage. When I'm elected, Kamala Harris said during a Democratic debate, I will give them 100 days to pull their act together, put a bill on my desk for signature, and if they don't, I will take executive action and put in place a comprehensive background check requirement and ban the importation of assault weapons into our country because it is time to act. Now, coincidentally enough, we actually have a story at Bearing Arms today about universal background checks in the state of New Mexico. They've been on the books for a year now, and there have been 0 arrests, 0 prosecutions, exactly as the sheriffs who were opposed to universal background checks in New Mexico said would happen. They said this was unenforceable. They said it was going to be a meaningless law, and so far, they've been proven exactly right. Kamala Harris doesn't just want to put meaningless laws on the books. She wants to turn the Second Amendment right into a privilege. She herself has talked about owning a gun. She told a CNN town hall, I own a gun for probably the reason a lot of people do, for personal safety. But then she went on to say, I was a career prosecutor, elevating herself above you, I, and the rest of the American people. Because in Kamala Harris's view, the Second Amendment is not a right. You do not have a right to keep and bear arms. She wants to turn that into a privilege exercised by a chosen few. Of course, she would be among them. But in terms of an actual honest-to-goodness right to keep and bear arms, Kamala Harris just doesn't think it exists. So we're going to talk more about Kamala Harris and her record on tomorrow's Bearing Arms Cam & Company. But again, I want to welcome to the program the owner of the Westside Gun Range in New York City, Darren Leung, to talk about how the range has survived the coronavirus closures, the chaos in New York City, and what the future looks like now that more New Yorkers are apparently applying to exercise their Second Amendment rights as well. Take a look and a listen. Hey, Darren, thank you so much, sir, for coming to the program. It's great talking with you today.
Cam, thank you for having me back again, my friend.
Absolutely. So I've got to ask, how are things going with the Westside Range right now?
Slow but sure, my friend. We're getting there. You know, we opened up again in June as an essential service, so we're providing service to the police and security and stuff. But I still haven't been able to get the civilians back in there, so it's a little dicey, but not too bad, my friend. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, I'm glad to hear that you're at least up and running and that you're able to get some business in there. But do you have any idea when, just the members who are not members of law enforcement are going to be able to get back to your range? Have you had any communication with the city?
Quite honestly, Cam, we're held hostage to the politicians that make the rules and regulations. Unless Cuomo decides to open up phase 4 indoor, I'm pretty much stymied by this.
That's amazing. I mean, it's because last time we talked was what, March or April, right? I mean, it's been months.
Yep, exactly.
Good Lord. And you all weren't even able to open up for law enforcement until June, you say?
Exactly. Yep. As an essential service provider.
That's absolutely incredible. And again, I mean, Cuomo, who knows when he's going to allow stage 4 indoors to open up. But in the meantime, I'm glad that at least law enforcement is able to get in there. And I don't want you to, talk out of turn or anything, but I'm guessing you've been having some pretty interesting conversations with some members of law enforcement about all the chaos that's been taking place on the streets of New York City over the past few months.
Absolutely, my friend. A lot of disheartening conversations coming from our good friends and our family in blue, and it's painful to see them, having to deal with something like this,
Absolutely. Have you all now, I confess that I'm not sure where exactly all of the protests have occurred, but you all haven't had any trouble there in or around the range in terms of property damage or things of that nature, have you?
In the general vicinity of the range, Cam, there was a bunch of stores on Fifth Avenue that were actually looted and stuff. We're kind of off Fifth Avenue, so they kind of avoided us.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. But, in terms of the chaos on the streets, I saw a story actually, Darren, just a couple days ago that apparently the number of gun permit applications in New York City, not the licenses that have been issued, but the permits have actually doubled over, this time last year. It seems like more New Yorkers, even if they can't get to your range at the moment, more New Yorkers are interested in exercising their Second Amendment rights at the moment.
Absolutely, Ken. We've been seeing a lot of that, but we've also been fielding a lot of phone calls too about how to and how can I buy a firearm? How do I get a license? So there's a big uptick take an interest in this. Absolutely.
So what are you telling folks when they call in and say, okay, I'm interested in becoming a gun owner. What do I do? What is your advice to a New York resident?
We don't want to dissuade them from not applying because, it's a long and lengthy process. We tell them to, stand fast with this thing. You're going to get it. Unfortunately, the police department's at a slowdown at this point. So we're not seeing permits coming out that quickly, but they are, though. So, we tell them to stay with it. You kind of picked a very bad time to do this, and it's a little too late, but something better late than never.
Do you think this is a sort of a sea change moment for New York City? I know that, the last time you and I talked, we talked about that strong Second Amendment support. It's not obviously a majority of New York residents, but there is a Second Amendment community in New York City. Have the events of the last few months, have they caused that community to get bigger, you think?
I'll be honest with you, Cam. I think there was a lot of folks that were on the fence, and they kind of went to the other side when they saw what was going on. They saw the heavy looting that was happening. They saw that there was no way to get around the city. I mean, you're pretty much left to yourself. And they realized that the cops had the cops' job, and there was a lot going on, and they couldn't get to where you were when you needed the help. So you were your own best, protecting your own best law enforcement agent. So I think a lot of people decided to go the other route and go, let me go and look into getting a permit or becoming a gun owner, becoming a permit holder.
Yeah. I mean, listen, that makes sense. And in most parts of the country, that would not be as, rigorous a process as it is in New York City. I mean, you talk about the length of time it's going to take, but it's also, hundreds of dollars in fees, and you can be told no, even if you are legally able to buy a gun. The NYPD could come back and say, yeah, we just don't think that you're of the right moral character to own one, right?
Cam, here's the funny thing too. I mean, how was it that, to apply for and get a license in the city, part of the predication is that I have to show you my tax forms, I have to show you all my financials. This is a recreational permit. What does that have to do with my income tax?
Wait. You're telling me, I didn't realize this, Darren. You're telling me when you apply for a permission slip to keep a gun in your home, you have to provide financial records to the NYPD?
Correct. Yes, you do. You must provide them to your taxes to show that you are paying your city, state, and federal taxes.
That is unbelievable. Exactly.
You also have to include a driver's abstract on your driving history to make sure that there's no infractions that you ever incurred that you might have to answer for. So again, it's very involved.
Yeah, I was actually talking. So I'm filling in this week for David Webb on Sirius XM Patriot, and I had a call today from a guy who used to live in New York City. He's since moved to New Jersey, and he was telling me that he had a suspended license for like a 2-week period. He didn't even realize that it was suspended, got it taken care of. He went to go renew his premises permit, and a police officer friend of his said, listen, you're probably not going to get approved because your license was suspended. He said, yeah, but I got it taken care of. It wasn't a big deal. He said, nope, it sounds like any check mark that they can use against you, no matter how small.
That's right. It's a mark on your record. It's in your jacket, in your file. Exactly.
Golly, and again, I wish that there was the opportunity and the chance for the Supreme Court to visit this issue, but unfortunately, right now, it looks like the Supreme Court's in a holding pattern when it comes to Second Amendment cases, and this is the way that it is. I've got to think though, Darren. I mean, with violent crime and shootings in New York City in particular, up like 200% over the same time last year. These aren't legal gun owners. These aren't the people who are following all of New York's ridiculously draconian gun laws that are committing these crimes.
Absolutely correct. And notice how when they disbanded the anti-crime unit camp and it basically took away the eyes on the street that were able to spot these guns, and that more or less emboldened these criminals to go, I'm not being stopped and searched, and there's no more anti-crime out there to look after me, so I'm going to just go do what I want to do.
Yeah, and meanwhile, the law-abiding legal New Yorkers who want to simply exercise their constitutional right of self-defense, they're getting the runaround, they're getting the delays, and maybe sometime in 2021, they'll be told that they can exercise their Second Amendment rights.
Correct, right, absolutely correct. Yep.
Jiminy Christmas. Well, Darren, listen, man, I appreciate you spending some time with us today. When you are able to reopen your range, you let me know, because I don't do this, but I will go to New York. And I will do the show from the Westside Range as soon as you guys are back open and you can let people like me inside the doors.
Cam, you are the best. You are the man, my friend. I can't begin to thank you enough, my friend. You're a gentleman. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Hey, listen, and I do want to ask before we let you go, because when we had you on back in March or April, when the store was or the range was closed, you had a GoFundMe that had been set up by some of your local customers to help keep the lights on. Is that GoFundMe still up and running? Are you still asking for support from the community?
It's still up and running, Cam. We're still asking for any support we can get. It's always appreciated. It's a big monster to deal with, and whatever help I can get, I'm always appreciative of it.
All right. Well, again, you can go to GoFundMe.com. Just look up Westside Range. You'll find that GoFundMe there. Darren Leung, in the meantime, sir, thank you for joining us today. Best of luck to you in the future, and I know we'll be talking again very soon.
Cam, God bless you, my friend. You are a gentleman. Thank you so much.
I appreciate Darren joining us on the program. It is always good talking with him, and I'm glad to see that the range is in a decent place right now. I hope it stays that way and only gets better. All right, listen, that is about all the time we've got for you on this edition of Bearing Arms Cam & Company. I promise we'll get back to the armed citizen stories, our recidivist report, and our good deeds tomorrow on the program. Again, we're going to be focusing as well on Kamala Harris's record and the Joe Biden anti-gun agenda, the campaign agenda announced by Joe Biden. What this would mean if the Biden-Harris ticket actually wins in November, what the impact would be on your right to own a firearm, and frankly, what it would mean for your children in the next generation in terms of our Second Amendment freedoms. So that's coming up on the next edition of Bearing Arms Cam & Company. Thank you for being a part of this edition of the program. Don't forget, you can subscribe to Town Hall Media on YouTube. That way you never miss a program. Also, subscribe at Apple Podcasts or other fine podcast platforms. Enjoy the rest of your Hump Day Wednesday, and we'll see you back here tomorrow, Thursday, August 13th, right? Thank goodness it's not a Friday the 13th. We'll talk to you Thursday, August the 13th. Until then, be safe, be well, be free, and we'll see you soon with another edition of Bearing Arms Cam & Company.